Hello and welcome to another video here. And in this video, I'm just going to demonstrate how we can do basic cleaning and transformation of data in Power BI. And of course, you would notice that I am in the Power Query Editor. The Power Query Editor is the platform on which we can do the transformation and cleaning of data in Power BI. If you are not familiar with how you can navigate to the Power Query Editor, I think I showed this in my last video where I was loading data into Power BI. So I have my three files here, people, returns, and sales. And I then start to notice any anomalies about my tables. And of course, the first thing that I would notice here is that my column headings have not been identified. It says column 1, column 2 here. And I don't want that to be the case because when I'm now creating reports in Power BI, those two columns are not going to be giving me any meaningful representations. So what I need to start doing here is to use proper headings to name my headings correctly. And I can also notice that the first row here is actually the row that is supposed to be the header row for this table. So Power BI provides a functionality that you can use to promote the first row as your heading row. So that function is found here in the little box that you find in the top left corner of this pane here. So if you click on this little box, you then see this option that says use first row as headers. And if you click this one, it would then promote the first row to be the headers. And if you can see here on the top, on the far right, you notice that there is a step that we took, and that step is talking about promoted headers. And after promoting the headers, Power BI then identified the data type for that header. This is why it is these two entries: promoted headers and changed type 1. So we have done that, and we look for more anomalies. Do we have any empty spaces? Do we have any duplications? Well, if the table, of course, is not supposed to be having duplications, then we can always take care of that. So one good thing that you may want to do also in the Power Query Editor to just make sure that everything is fine. Of course, here my dataset, my table of data is quite small, so I can see everything in one screen like this. And I can notice that there are no empty cells here. But in the case that you have a very large data set with hundreds or thousands of rows of data, you then probably may want to go into View. If you click on View there, and then you click on Column Profile, just check on Column Profile. If you check on this option here that says Column Profile, and you click on any of your columns here, you are going to get these column statistics about this table called people in my case. So these statistics will actually tell you the number of rows that you have in this table. In my case, I have 24 rows, and if I had any errors in this row, it would tell me that I have errors in the row. If I had any empty cells in that row, it would also tell me that I have some empty cells. So this is one good way of analyzing your data for any anomalies before you can load it into the report view of Power BI. So if I go to the region column there, it will also tell me that I have 24 and I don't have any errors, I don't have any empty spaces. Okay, so I'll do the same for the returns table, and I notice that my column headings have not been identified again. My first row here is supposed to be the row that contains my headers. So I'll promote this first row to be the headers. So I'll click again on that little box and say use first row as headers. And if I choose that option, The first row is going to be promoted to be the headers. And likewise, it will also put these two entries here, promoted headers and change type 1. It has promoted that and it has identified the data types. Power BI does data type identification automatically, but where it fails to identify the data type, you can always go ahead and change the data type yourself. All right, so I'll do the same for the returns table. Just go to view and check on column profile, and I see that I have 1,000 rows of data in this table, and I don't have any empty spaces, I don't have any errors. So this column here is quite okay. And I go to the order column. I don't have any empty spaces, I don't have any errors. I'll go to the region. Again, I don't have any errors, I don't have any empty spaces. So all these three columns are quite in order. And I can go to third table, which is sales. And I notice that in my sales table, I have a little of a problem here. Now, I said that Power BI identifies data types automatically, and sometimes it fails to identify the correct data type for a column. Yes, that happens sometimes. But when it happens, you can now force to tell Power BI that the data type for a particular column is this data type. And for instance, you can see here all these column headings, they are showing that Power BI has identified two forms of data types for each column. And it's showing by these symbols that it has here in the left side of the column and of the column heading. That is, if you see that it says ABC 1 2 3, that means Power BI has identified two data types for this column, and you don't want that in your data sets, because a column has to have its specific data type, which is a data type that you can readily identify when you are creating your reports. For example, if I'm going to be creating reports that are in the form of dates, I need my date column to be identified as a date, because I need to produce reports that are dated or that are date specific. So if I can't have Power BI identifying my dates as date, then I'm going to have a problem in creating such kind of reports. So I will then, of course, change the data type of each column. Like for example, here the row ID and my order ID. I want both to be text, and what I need to do is I just select these two columns. I'll just press down my shift key and I choose the two columns. Of course, I press shift key because these two are actually adjacent to each other, but if they were far away from each other, I would select them using the control key. So once these two have been selected, then I can change the data type of these two columns by just going into the column heading there, column heading of any of these two columns, and I right click on that column, and then I go to change type, and I choose the correct data type that I want for these two columns. And in my case, I want these two columns to be labels, so I will choose the text data type. There we go. Our columns have the text data type now. So I'll do the same again for the date. So I have order date and ship date, and I know both these two have to be date in terms of their data type. So I'll select them again, my shift key down, and I click on both tables, and I right click again in the column heading. I go to change type, and I choose date as the data type. Choose date, and the date has changed. So the data type has changed to date, and you can see that it puts a little symbol that shows a calendar on the left side of the column heading there, to tell me that this column has been identified as a date column. I'll go ahead and do the same, changing the data type for the other columns. I know that this ship mode column, the customer ID column, the customer name column, the segment, the postal code. No, postal code is supposed to be numeric, I guess. So I know that these columns from ship mode to segment, they have to be text in terms of their data type. So I'll just select all of them, right click on any column heading and go to change type, and I choose text for these columns. Then I'll proceed to the next column, which is the postal code. Postal code is appearing as numeric here. So if you just click on this filter option there, you can notice that most of these values that I have in that column, they are all numbers. So I'll just right click on this column heading and go to change type and change that to whole number. Change that to whole number, and it will change all those to whole number like that. Of course, all these that are registering now, they were empty in the first place. So I may need to go back and take care of this so that I have the correct data in these cells that are registering as now. I'll proceed to the next column, city, state, country, region, market, product ID, category, subcategory, the product name. I'm simply selecting all these columns, and I know that all these columns, they are supposed to be text. I'll also select the order priority as well. All these columns that I've selected, they are supposed to have the text data type as their data type. So I'll right click on any column heading of the columns that I've selected. I go to change type and I choose text as the data type for those columns, and I have achieved that. The data types have been identified correctly, as you can see here by these symbols A, B, C. Shows that my data type for that column is text. Then I'll take care of the data type for these columns: the sales, the discount, the profit, the shipping cost. Why I've selected these columns to have the same data type is because I'm noticing that they are decimal numbers. If you can notice here, there are decimal numbers in the shipping cost column. In the profit column, there are also decimal numbers, and in the discount, there are also decimal numbers, as well as the sales column, there are also decimal numbers. So I want all these columns that I've selected to have the same data type, which is decimal. So I'll right click on any column heading of these columns that I've selected. I'll go to change type, and then I'll change these to decimal number. So I click on decimal number, and my data type for these columns will become decimal. And what I need to do last is to change the data type for the quantity column. I'll just right click the quantity column, go to change type, and I can see that it should have whole numbers. So I'll click on whole number, and my data type has been changed successfully to a whole number. So if I look at all the columns that I have in my table now, all the data types have been identified correctly. Okay, now when it comes to situations where you have a null like this, it's always good practice to just refer to the source first. Refer to the source for the correct entries that should go in here, and the source should be able to advise you on how you should treat these nulls. And there are various ways of treating these nulls. Okay, and of course we can see this is the postal code column, and we can't, of course, just guess a postal code and put it here. Okay, so the source should be able to advise. But if you know that you are never going to be using the postal code in your reports, then you can just get rid of the column, of course. If you want to get rid of a column, just to remove a column that you are not going to be using in any of your reports, you just go ahead and right click the column and say remove. The column is gone. I no longer have the postal code column. And I know that probably I may want the order ID to be the only identifier of each and every one of these rows. Then I don't need the row ID because it's not really serving me any purpose. I'll just remove that one. Right click on it and say remove. So I'll remain with the order ID as my primary key for this table. Okay, and likewise, I'll go to view and do my column profiling. I'll go to the order ID column first, click on it, and it should show me that I have 1000 rows here. I don't have any errors, I don't have any empty spaces. I'll go to the date column. It will also show me I don't have any errors, I don't have any empty spaces, and I have 1000 rows of data. The ship date again, the same thing. I don't have any errors. So largely, if I go to any of these columns, I should be able to see if I have any empty spaces. I'll go to city, no empty spaces. I go to state, no empty spaces. I'll go to country, I don't have any empty spaces. Region, no empty spaces. Market, no empty spaces. So this is a good way of just checking your data if you have any empty spaces. And mostly you do not want to have empty spaces in the row that is your primary key, because we don't want primary keys to be empty. This is a rule of thumb when you're dealing with tables. The primary key column can never be null. It can never be empty. So you don't want the primary key column, like the order ID here, to be null, to be having any empty cells. I don't want that to happen. So I think largely my sales table is fine now, and I have taken care of the columns that I needed to remove, and I have changed my data types. I have checked if there are any empty spaces, and of course, if you have the need to remove any duplicates in any column, you then just right click on the column and say remove duplicates right here. Right click on the column, remove duplicates. It will remove the duplicates in that column. And as you can see, no duplicates have been removed. I still have my 1000 count in terms of the number of rows. Now, one thing that I want to stress, of course, is that when you're in the Power Query editor, the menu that you see when you right click on a column, everything that you see in that menu, when you activate everything or when you click on any of these options, that function is going to affect this column that you are selecting here. And when you want some global functions for the whole table, for the entire table, then that's when you go to this little box here. Anything that you do here affects the whole table. So if you want to remove duplicates for the whole data set or for the whole table called sales, you simply click on that little box there and you go down there and say remove duplicates, and it will remove duplicates if there are any duplicate rows. And if you go to any particular column, if there are any duplicate entries in this column called order IDs, if I remove the duplicates, it would remove the duplicates and the associated data that is in other columns after the order ID. So it would remove the duplicates from the order ID column together with the other data that is being found in the other columns corresponding to the rows that have been removed. Right, and if you need, of course, to be changing the names of the columns, let's say you want to standardize the columns, you want to change the names of the columns, you can just double click on the column and you are able to change it. Let's say you want to be using the snake case for your column headings. You can go right ahead, double click on the column heading and just put your underscore, press enter, double click on the other heading, put your snake case, press enter, double click that, put your snake case and press enter. So you can do this for all the column headings that you may need to do that for. If you have the need to be changing your column heading names. So I've just changed these few to snake case. That is if I want to standardize my column headings. And of course, I can also right click on any column, and I can probably look at replacing values as well. If I need to be replacing any values, if I know that I need to replace certain values, I can just right click on the column and say replace value, and then I specify what value I want to replace. What value do I want to find so that I can replace it? So if you know the value that you want to find and replace, like in this case, let's say I want to replace the first one there, the CA 2014, the CA 2014, AB 100 151 41954. So if I want to replace that one with, let's say, 100, I can simply say CA-100. I can do that. And once I have specified what I want to replace with, I can just then place OK there. And you can see that my order ID there has been replaced with CA100. So you can do this for any of your entries in your data set. And if you really want to pinpoint any specific cell that you want to replace the value for, let's say I choose this cell that says standard class. I just right click on that cell and I say replace values. I'll replace the value, and of course it says standard class because I've really gone to click on to right click on that specific cell, so it knows that it is standard class as the entry. Then I'll choose what I want to replace with. I'll just replace with something that is quite unique to that column. I can say ordinary class, then I click on OK. So you can see here standard class has been changed to ordinary class. So that's how you can replace these values. And if you have any errors in any column, remember I said when you do your column profiling, you can see errors here. And if you notice that you have any errors, of course you can just go and right click. You can remove the errors if you want, if you so wish. This is now depending on your use case, on your business case. You can remove the errors, or you can go ahead and replace the errors down here. You can just replace the errors. All errors, let's say you want them to be replaced, and then you specify the value that you want to replace those errors with. And when you do that, you can simply, let me say 100 there, and you say OK. So all errors that will be in this column called order ID, they are going to be replaced with 100. Okay, so that's basically the things that you need to look at when you are cleaning your data, when you're transforming your data in the Power Query editor. And of course, the most important thing is make sure that your column headings have been identified, and after that make sure that the data types for each column have been correctly identified by Power BI. And when you are satisfied that you have done your cleaning of data like that, you have removed the duplicates where you are supposed to be removing duplicates, you have taken care of the errors where you are supposed to take care of the errors, you have transformed your columns, you have labels that you really can identify, then you can go and click on home and you say close and apply. And of course, Power BI is going to load your data set with those changes that you would have made, and your data will be in your report view, ready for you to create your first Power BI report. I hope you have enjoyed that. That was a short demonstration of how you can clean your data and transform your data in the Power Query editor of Power BI. I hope you have enjoyed. See you in the next video. Bye-bye.